Hi, my name is Dr. Justin Didomenico, and I'm a Senior Vice President of School Consultation and a BCBA D with Brett DiNovi Associates. Today we're going to talk about the basics of verbal behavior. Now, verbal behavior is based upon a book written by B.F. Skinner in 1957. But at that time, Skinner was really trying to distinguish his science from the more known. What differed Skinner's analysis of verbal behavior from those that were common at that time was that Skinner applied his concepts of operant conditioning and learning to verbal behavior, which was somewhat radical at the time. Skinner, always being the salesman for applied behavior analysis that he was, and the prolific writer that he was at a conference with a prominent psychologist at that time named Albert North Whitehead. Now, Albert North Whitehead, having sitting at a conference with Skinner, conceded, "I believe that the principles of applied behavior analysis can explain overt visible behavior. However, it cannot explain verbal behavior." He posed this question to Skinner and said, "For example, you can't tell me why I'm saying no black scorpion is falling upon this table." So the lore goes, that was 1937. Skinner that night started his 20-year quest to explain why that happened, and that's where verbal behavior came from. There's a difference between verbal behavior and vocal behavior. People, when they hear the word verbal, they assume it's only spoken language. Verbal behavior doesn't mean just spoken language. There are many different types of verbal behavior. Most importantly to Skinner was that interaction between a speaker and a listener. But yet most verbal behavior isn't necessarily just vocal. For example, things like pointing. If I point to you, that can mean a direction going to a certain location. Gesturing, or maybe tapping on a chair and saying, sit here. We have a lot of learners that may not have any vocal behavior, but they can use an assistive tech device to communicate their wants and needs, not necessarily using any words at all. PECS, which a lot of students use, the Picture Exchange Communication System. Street signs could also be verbal behavior, giving you directions, do not enter, 25 miles per hour. Hopefully you adhere to those things. But those are just simply other ways that verbal behavior is found in our community. The last thing I really want to talk about regarding verbal behavior is the 6 elementary verbal operants. Now, these are words that Skinner had come up with himself to really distinguish from what was going on at the time. Like I mentioned, Chomsky and Piaget. Skinner changed some of the words that they were using so there wasn't any confusion between what he was trying to say and what the current culture at the time was using regarding the learning of language. So the first elementary verbal operant I want to discuss is the mand. When you say mand, simply it's another word for a request. So it might be putting your hand out, or it could simply be, I want a cookie. All examples of mands. Now, echoics are what they sound like, an echo. So I say, happy birthday, and someone imitates what I'm saying, says happy birthday. It's just an imitation of what I said. It's an echoic. Tact. Tact is a label. Computer, phone, table. These are all examples of tact. In an intraverbal, all I'm saying is that what I say is different than what you say. So for example, if I say, what's the capital of Pennsylvania? And you say Harrisburg, that would be an example of an intraverbal, just meaning my stimulus differs from your stimulus. Transcription is much more like, if you think about it, a courtroom. Someone is, an attorney's giving their closing arguments, and you have the stenographer in the corner taking the words I'm using and typing them out. That's an example of transcription. And in textual, really, it simply is, I read it and then say it. So if we're working with a student, let's say reading a list of Dolch words, and we're presenting each card, and they read it, and it's and, the, today. It's just simply reading it and then saying it. Hoping that my explanation today of verbal behavior gives a good foundation, just some basics to understand about what verbal behavior really is and what the value of it is to our science. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much.
Bye.